putting a spell on you. Here's your look at the Mattel Master Universe Origins Evil-Lyn, the Evil Warrior Goddess. Modernizing and celebrating the original 80s Master Universe action figures, Master Universe Origins gives you the power to pose Eternia's greatest warriors as retro-style figures or in all-new action-packed battle positions. Before we get into the review of Evil-Lyn, the first thing we're going to want to do is figure out how tall the figure stands. I'm going to take it right to the very top of the crest on her head, because she's got that little headdress piece. I'm going to take it right to the very top of that, and stop the tape measure there. According to the readouts, Evil-Lyn stands 5.7 inches in height. We can switch that to centimeters, revealing that Evil-Lyn is 14.5 centimeters tall. I suppose the best comparison we can make is we'll move Evil-Lyn over. Just get her to stand. She has slightly smaller feet. Seems to be the problem with some of these figures. We'll bring in Teela, because after all, they're female bodies. Give you a best idea of really how these figures stack up with one another. I don't have any issues when it comes to actually the legs on Evil-Lyn, though it was plaguing problems when it came to the look at Teela. But we can also bring in some of the other characters as well. We'll bring in Trapjaw. We'll bring in Skeletor. Mostly all the bad guys here, because of course they're all part of the same team. All the same club, so to speak. They all have their club membership cards, except for Teela, of course. Give you an idea of how the figures stack up with one another. I guess, again, the closest proximity is Teela compared to Evil-Lyn here. Being sure not to leave off the mini-comic for this part of this review, Evil-Lyn does in fact come with the exact same Beast Barrage comic that we've seen with all the other figures. Unfortunately, though, for Evil-Lyn's, this one didn't come out of the packaging as well. I really think that they need to widen the actual area that holds the comic, because the plastic is literally outlining just the comic. That when you try to cut it and take the comic out, the plastic is right here. So if you're not super careful, and I thought I was, I ripped the corner of it, and the whole back end of it got just real mangled and chewed up. I'm not devastated by this because, of course, if you've seen enough of these reviews by now, you know that every single one of this first wave of line of figures have all come included with the exact same comic. I just really think if this was the only time I would ever get Beast Barrage, I would be really disappointed with the way it was handled, just trying to remove it out of what I thought was plastic that was just outlining it. But it's too close in proximity, and a poor damaged comic as a result of it. Shucks. I'm going to put that to the side. Evil-Lyn comes also included with her scepter. Would you call this a scepter? I would call it a scepter. It's all molded in a very ice blue plastic. You can see on the end of it there a talon. Would that be a talon holding the orb in place? I got a little bit of plastic right on the very end of it, but other than that, it is a nice looking scepter, similar to the one that she came included with, I think, in the original retro line. Now, this is a case where you can, of course, fit this in either one of her hands. I think the original Evil-Lyn actually had a flat hand on the one side, but in the case here of the Mattel release, you actually do get yourself gripping hands. So you can actually put the scepter in either one of her hands. I like that. It does look a little on the big side, certainly when it comes to the handle end of it, but I can't complain for the fact it stays well enough in her hand. It's not going to be falling off anytime soon. Go ahead and put that to the side for the time being. Let's bring back in Teela, because of course that's the best comparison we can make, being that they're both utilizing the exact same style of body. The lower legs, in fact, are identical to one another. And yet I still can't figure out why I had so many issues with Teela's one leg. I mean, if I'm looking at Evil-Lyn's, I'm looking at Teela's, they seem to be carbon copies to one another. Of course, not quite the same color. But when it comes to Evil-Lyn, I can bend her legs out fine. It's a little tight, mind you, but I can bring the legs out. You can see right there. Again, I don't know what was the issue. I couldn't even get this far on Teela. Strange to be looking at this part of the figure. But yeah, I can at least do that with Evil-Lyn, so that's something. When eventually we have a look at She-Ra, She-Ra will be using, again, the same body build as all of these figures. And that's really the calling card that's always been the case with Master Universe figures. They always really reuse the same body molds over and over again. I suppose you could probably pop the arms out, although I think these ones would be a little bit more stubborn, and I don't want to break these. But I know certainly with the male figures, as we had a look in one of the reviews, you can pop the limbs off, at least on the male figures, and then swap them around. I don't think I would be risking that when it comes to the female figures. As for Evil-Lyn, certainly one of the big things you'll probably see right off the bat is she awfully has a very sickly color scheme, especially when it comes to her skin. This kind of neon yellow looks like the color of like those old 80s highlighters, which I would imagine are probably still around. You get a yellow, you get a green, you get a pink, and sometimes you get a blue. This looks like that off yellow color. It's not completely off, mind you. When you go and really look up the original Master Universe Evil-Lyn, she had an off coloring like this. Although I don't think it was as off yellow as what we're getting right here, but it was pretty bad. It was a real sickly looking color. So I will say, at least, I will commend Mattel for continuing the tradition of giving her these wonky looking colors. Despite for the yellow highlighter skin, you can see that she's got some nice additional armor over top of it in the nice blue, dark blue, and lighter blue. I'll bring in Teela, just do comparison side to side. She does have, in fact, the same body as well. Like, well, at least the armor. You see, it's exactly the same. I mean, really, when you also look at it, too, the arms are the same as well. It literally is just a carbon copy. Just, of course, a different color. Similar, actually, to Man-at-Arms and He-Man. Pretty much the exact same figure, right down to the gauntlets as well. I like the head sculpt. I think the head sculpt is a much better looking head than what we got with the original retro version of Evil-Lyn. I like that she has a bit of a sneer on her face. Paint is pretty good. You can even see the dividing line area between the top of her teeth and the bottom of her teeth. You can very cleanly see that. So paint wasn't an issue here on Evil-Lyn. Of course, you got the headdress area here as well. I liked Evil-Lyn in the Master Universe live action movie. I thought the actress that played her was really good. Spin around on the back, though. A nice detailing on the back of the headdress. You could maybe argue the point that maybe the blue doesn't stretch out as far as it should on each one of the individuals, especially in the top area there. But I really don't want to nitpick the smaller things. If I found issues where the paint was bleeding onto something, yeah, I would more or less think that that was a bigger issue. Things like that is just more of something I'm pointing out than anything else. Like right here, I've got a little bit of paint that's flaking off. I don't know if it's flaked off, it's chipped off, or just the way it came off the assembly line, it didn't get a full paint job, because there is a little bit of that plastic peeking its way through underneath. But overall, I like the body. I think everything comes together well on Evil-Lyn, especially for the fact, at least in this case, I don't have issues with the legs. They seem like they're still tight, but they're certainly not the issue that I had with Teela there. As for the articulation on Evil-Lyn, would be the same as Teela. Her head rotates all the way around. It hinges down, it hinges up. Not as much as I would say as the male characters. They had a greater amount of posing, a little more range of motion when it came to their heads. The female figures are a little bit more limited, I've noticed. The head rocks back and forth. You can hinge those arms out. And again, a very comfortable 90-degree angle bend. Imagine if you walked into my collection room and I had all my figures basically just doing this, standing on the shelf with their arms stretched out. You probably would be asking yourself, what are you doing with your figures? It's a long story. I'll get into that later. But the arms rotate all the way around. Whoops, the arms rotate all the way around. I wasn't expecting that. Go ahead and retrieve that arm. Whew. Well, it does answer one question. Can I remove the arms? That was more a fluke, an accident than anything else. But the arm does rotate all the way around. Let's try not to do that again. It does bend at the elbow, rotate the forearm, and it also rotates the hand all the way around. I can tell you there was a good sigh of relief to find I didn't break the peg, only that the arm actually popped out. Again, I don't know if I'd want to do that with the female figures just because their bodies are a little bit more slimmer. The waist still swivels back and forth, the same as all the other Master Universe Origins figures that we had a look at, and unlike Teela, I can actually do more of a greater splits on Evil-Lyn. I'm sure much to her disappointment. You can bring the legs forward and back like that. You can bend the leg, but just again, here's a good example of this. You look at Evil-Lyn, spin that around like that. Because really from the front, you'd never know where that joint is residing. And if it sits right here, and you go to bend it, you're going to break that leg right off. And then from there, we'll just rotate that boot back the way it should be. So going back to the knees again, bend at the knees. You can rotate the lower leg. You can rotate the boot, thank goodness for that. And you can also hinge the feet back and forth and rock them as well. I like the look of Evil-Lyn. Let's go ahead and get her scepter back into her hand. I think I just look for a reason to say scepter. But she definitely is a good-looking character. Fits in well with, say, Skeletor. Let's bring back Skeletor. There we go. Display the two side to side. And again, one thing I like about this particular line, you know what? Let's bring Trapjaw back in here as well. It started just with Evil-Lyn, then I had Skeletor, and then, of course, I had to balance it off on both sides. But one thing I like about this is it's still a throwback to the original retro line of Master of the Universe figures. They haven't changed much. Let's get those straight back up here. They haven't changed much in the sense that when you're looking at these based on the original lineup of toys, other than just a few little tweaks on, of course, the articulation, brand new head sculpts, a lot of still the same basic ideas are still brought from that original line to this new line of Master Universe Origins figures. And because they are so much a throwback to those original retro lines, maybe that's one of the reasons why I'm digging this line so much. Evil-Lyn, while still looking like her retro counterpart, has enough necessary upgrades to really end up being a nice looking figure, especially when you've got it on display with the rest of Skeletor's cronies here. Something I had mentioned in an earlier review of one of these Master Universe Origins figures that I'll reiterate here with the final looks of Evil-Lyn, digging the artwork that they put at the top of these cards. Of course, all corresponding with the character that's clamshelled on the front of the card. That's a good looking image of Evil-Lyn, evil and sinister the way that she should be. I would love to see Mattel release just a standalone book of this art style, because I think all the artwork on all the back of these cards have been really fantastic to this point. I hope they continue that trend with future waves where we're all going to get that art styling on the top of the card. Of course, now this wraps up the first wave of Master Universe Origins figures. There are, of course, a few little vehicles, and there's Battle Cat we still have to look at as well, which reviews of those will be coming shortly. But I'm digging this line quite a bit. Being somebody that grew up with Master Universe, G.I. Joes, Transformers were basically my bread and butter. That was the stuff that I was collecting religiously. And every time it seemed to be a birthday, I got more Master Universe than I did, I think, the other two toy lines. So for me, that's hitting all those feels, you could just say. I never really had an Evil-Lyn when I was younger. Now that I think about it, I don't think I had any female characters when I was younger. My sister had a She-Ra, but I was more someone that was collecting the male figures. I guess really back in the day, I wasn't collecting female figures. I think probably the first female figure I ever collected was an April O'Neil to go along with my Ninja Turtles. But for He-Man, I was pretty much just buying the male characters. Hindsight being 2020, I probably should have been collecting all of them because I was a big fan of the cartoon. And of course, the collection seemed a little absent. The fact I didn't have a Teela, I didn't have an Evil-Lyn, and half the time I was sneaking She-Ra from my sister's collection to play along with the boys. But I do like the design of Evil-Lyn. I do like the fact as well that when it came to Evil-Lyn's re-release here, somewhat re-release if you think of the original line, the fact that they kept that sickly color scheme still intact. One thing I didn't mention, actually, when we had a look at the Evil-Lyn in this review, is that her torso is a slight different color from her arms and her legs. It's not to the point where it's too jarring to see, but when you especially see the figure from the back of her torso definitely has a different yellow than the arms. Again, not a deal breaker at all. She comes included with the scepter, which of course is one thing I'm going to be displaying along with the figure, and she comes, unfortunately in this case, a ripped comic book. They really have to improve, I think, the space they allow clearance for when putting the comic book in with the clamshell, because it's literally just framed around the comic. And if you have just a corner of it get stuck in that plastic and you try to pull that comic out, I've already had a couple of these comics rip already. Thank goodness I already have a whole stack of Beast Barrage comics. But if I only had one of those, that would be very devastating to have a ripped comic trying to take that out of the clamshell. Despite that, I am really excited to see what's going to be in store for future Master Universe Origins figures. We already technically took a peek at Trapjaw because I couldn't wait. But of course, we're going to be having a look at the Series 2, Wave 2, and we're going to be having a look at Wave 3. As much as these are coming out, and if I can actually get access to them, which is the biggest problem here in Canada, but if I can actually get these, more reviews of the Master Universe figures will be coming soon to this channel. The key to making sure, though, that you're staying on board and you're seeing all the reviews as they're hitting, make sure you hit the subscribe button down below. You can also turn on the bell notification as your way of telling YouTube that, yes, in fact, you want to see more content coming your way, and you want to get those notifications whenever this channel posts something new. You can also know that Monday to Friday, 12 p.m. and also 2 p.m. is when we post new videos on this channel. So there's 2 videos a day. There's always new stuff coming your way. And I always like to try to keep the times on the videos the exact same as every single day, so that you know you can come back the next day and those same scheduled times will be the same times that you see the brand new videos coming on this channel. Lots of stuff coming your way, guys, so keep your peepers peeled to this channel. And thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.